right, welcome everyone. Welcome to our Retriever Family Roundtable. This is our second episode. I'm so excited to be with you all here today, and I have some fabulous guests today that are going to be doing some great sharing and providing some great resources to the parent and family community. And so I don't look familiar, my name is Fritzy Charnay Merriweather. I'm the Special Assistant to the Vice President of Student Affairs, and I have the distinct pleasure to work with our parent and family community, as well as with our Parent and Family Advisory Board. And we have some fabulous board members here today that I'm going to introduce to you all in just a moment, as well as our subject matter expert on campus that I'm also going to introduce. But thank you for joining us for our Retriever Roundtable. So if this is your first time seeing this, our Retriever Roundtable is actually a new program that we initiated this spring. We decided as a family advisory board that we wanted to provide information and resources with families regarding a variety of different topics that we have seen as we've gone to support the parent and family community. So the Parent and Family Advisory Board has been fabulous in helping us craft and come up with different topics that we all are going to be discussing throughout the semester. And they've so graciously volunteered to share their experiences so that it provides you all as a parent and family community some resources and information, and just an opportunity to kind of hear from someone who's been there, done that, as well as provide you with a point of connection to the community. So I hope you're going to enjoy our episode this week. But to get us started, I wanted to introduce who's here with us today. And so I'm going to throw it to first of all, before I throw it to them, I want to say, these family advisory board members who are on the call today are our OGs. Like, they have been with the family advisory board from the beginning, right? And so I'm so happy they could join us here today. And so I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Sally and Randy, do you want to say hello?
Hello, everybody. I'm Sally Gaines, and I've been on the advisory board, I guess, since the beginning, 2.5 years, although I can't be an OG because I think Chuck and Angie have been on it 3 years. So. But close enough.
Yeah.
We have,
got it. And good afternoon.
We have our son is.
Oh.
Oops. Go ahead, Randy.
I was going to introduce myself, Randy Gaines, married to Savannah.
Yeah, I was going to pass it, but anyway. So we have a son, Ryan, who's a junior, and he's a history poli-sci major. He's involved in grit guides. He's a peer facilitator, and he just started a vinyl record club that he's really excited about. And that's who we are. We're from Bethesda, Maryland.
Got it.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to throw it to Chuck and Angela.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Chuck, and my wife, Angie. We've been on the Family Advisory Board for 3 years, as Sally had indicated. Our daughter is a senior at UMBC. We've had a great experience there. She's very involved. Was president of her Phi Mu sorority. She's involved in Retriever Essentials as well as the Honors College. She's going to be graduating in the spring with a double degree in biology and psychology, and hopes to be attending medical school in a couple of years.
All right, awesome. And I'm going to go ahead, Amanda, which is one of our lovely colleagues here at UMBC, who does such amazing work with our students in terms of academic support. Amanda, why don't you say hello?
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Sharp. I work as an academic advocate in the Academic Success Center. My role specifically works with first-year students. And advocates as a whole, we really reach out to students or find students who are dealing with a lot of complex issues. So it may not be just like failing one class or failing even 2 classes, but maybe they're like failing 2 classes. They're having this life crisis. Like, I've had work with students with car accidents, or their mom got sick or they got sick. And they just need that support to be able to kind of navigate their world whenever their life is kind of in chaos in the moment. And so the way that we describe it is we work with students with really complex issues and then help them come up with plan A to plan B, because we know plan A always doesn't work out. And so, and just really come up with a success plan to help them build their confidence up and then help them move forward at UMBC.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda. So as I shared, I'm Fritzy Charnay Merriweather. I work with parents and families. I've been at UMBC almost 12 years now. which is a really long time. But a lot of my role, in addition to working with parents and families, I also do support students. And I connect a lot with Amanda and her area, particularly because families are reaching out to me about some challenges that their students may be having. And so I do a lot of those kind of connection points to resources on campus as students may be having some difficulties on campus. And so I'm so happy to be with you all here today. And so let's just jump right into the topic, right? Because this is one of the topics I was super excited to discuss with the parent and family community, because by far, as I just mentioned, I've been with UMBC for almost 12 years now. I would say this is probably the most called, emailed smoke signals that I get from families in regarding where they need support, right, for their student. And so this is why I think this topic is so important. And there are a lot of different things that are happening with students in regards to the transition to college, but there's also a lot that's happening for the parent and family community, right? So there's tons of literature out there that focuses on the academic adjustment of college for students, right? Because there is a shift. They go from, being in high school where it was a very structured format and environment, very structured places of support, where that is really sometimes primarily driven by family guidance and support, to a completely different environment that has more academic freedom, so that students are more kind of less on their own, they're more on their own, they get less direction from faculty and staff. Families are not as much in the know, right, anymore in regards to kind of what's happening. I think I shared with Angela and Chuck last week, that, right now my students are in middle school and high school. And so I get an alert every time something happens, right? I get text messages and emails and all the things that are happening with my student. And I'm very engaged in what's happening in their academic experience. But there's a shift that happens in college where now it's the student who's in the driver's seat. And I know that has presented some challenges for families. In addition, there's increased study requirements for students. Sometimes I've heard students say, I've never studied before, like really studied, right? And they've either just been able to because they're super smart, right, get by, and they come to in a college environment, and now they have to figure out what is studying, what is time management. And then tackling college level academics. I've seen some students, really struggle with, adjusting to the habits and expectations from faculty, and just trying to navigate that experience can be really challenging for them. We spoke about time management. Not only are they tackling these kind of college level academics, but now they have all this other stuff, right? All the other distractions that are happening, clubs, organizations, my roommate, if I'm living on campus, or, I'm going to go hang out, off campus. So there's a lot of things that are happening. And then lastly, it's that piece that I really want to focus on, is that asking for help, right? That advocating for yourself. In high school, middle school, that help usually comes to you, right? The teacher sees you're struggling, so they'll reach out, they'll pull you in, they'll contact family, they'll do all those things. And then when it's college, when you're in the college environment, that doesn't happen as much anymore. There are some key indicators that do happen to kind of flag and signal students, hey, you may need some help. And there may be some faculty who are a little bit more proactive, but for the most part, students, it's on them to, if they're struggling, to say, I need help, to reach out to those resources. Those resources aren't going to come to them. And so all of this is happening for college students. Can you imagine what's happening for families, right? On the family side. So you all are like, what is happening? I don't know how to help. No one will talk to me. Should I email the professor? I don't know what to do. So a lot of that anxiety and struggle is happening with the parent and family community. And I know that you all are looking for the best ways to support your students. And so I thought this was a really great opportunity to share from you all's perspective some of the things that you've tried, that you've done, your experiences with your student, to just be able to share that out with families. So maybe they see themselves, maybe they see something from a different perspective, and or hear something new and get some new resources. And so I'm going to invite our board members to jump in and share a little bit about their stories, because I think each of you all have a very interesting and unique experience that I think speaks well to the parent and family community. So I'm going to start us off with Randy and Sally. I love your story, quite honestly, and I really feel like it's representative of kind of what happens with our students and families. And so tell us a little bit about your experiences, like what happened, what were some of the challenges, what worked for you all? Just go ahead and feel free to share what you're comfortable with.
Okay, if it's okay, Randy, I'll start and you fill in the holes, because there'll be holes.
Sure.
We early on learned that everybody learns differently and everybody has different study styles or none. And our oldest was self-motivated. We never ever had to check on her. She's always very self-motivated. And so with our UMBC student, we were looking for a different kind of environment. We wanted a nurturing environment, which, and I'm going to give the big plug now, we completely have found at UMBC. It's just such a community, and everyone there wants your child to succeed. And we really were looking for that, and we've been so pleased. But I think students sometimes think, oh, I'm in college now, I don't need any help. Well, they need help and they don't want it from us anymore. And so we're used to, like you said, at school, in high school, being able to know, or someone reaching you or writing you an email. And our son wanted to start off and be pretty independent, but he had this image that college students pull all-nighters. And that's what college is all about. And so we kept saying, no, that's just in movies. That's that you're setting yourself up to fail. So we repeatedly, didn't we, Randy, tell him, treat it like a job, treat it like a 9-to-5 job, go to your classes, go to the library in between, after you're done, do your work. And then your evenings are free for your activities and the gym, the job. That has been a problem. I mean, we come back to that a lot. We come and we use those words all the time. But I mean, I think our biggest lesson we've learned is, you know, everyone in due time. We've seen tremendous growth, tremendous, but it hasn't been a smooth, easy road. It's definitely, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and the pandemic didn't help us much. You know, that in a way it was a nice reset, though, having him come home. But I don't, wouldn't you agree, Randy?
I would agree very much so.
Yes.
Yep. So I would add a few
so,
things on that. Do you have more to add? Just making sure.
I have lots, but we can keep going back and forth.
Okay, so I do think,
Go
Sally,
ahead, please.
Part of it is that it's the maturity level too. Everyone matures a little bit differently, and what we learned is that even through elementary school and middle school, that we all mature a little differently. Our son is probably maturing at a little bit of a slower rate than our daughter did at the same time in that level of academy. So putting in those, you know, rigid guardrails around, it's a job, 9 to 5, even though you can make it as specific as possible, it still kind of steer off. And I think, Sally, you did mention a lot, but the social side of things is very important as well, I think, is finding the right people, the right place. And again, Fritzy, we keep saying that, you know, find the right school. UMBC is the right school because everyone at UMBC wants you to be successful. I think that, and they'll go out of their way to make sure that you are successful, and that there's, so I think ultimately for those who may be listening, you know, if you don't feel that, you know, because I think that the school itself, they want everyone to graduate. I mean, and they're, you know, you have to work your way out of doing something terrible not to do that. So I think that the maturity side, Sally, the social side of what you had talked about, and then the working as a job, and then making sure you can activate the resources, because I think that the resources are just plentiful. We have to remind our son every day. We go online, you know, Ryan, the Spanish, there's a pair tutor. Oh, nope, I got it. And, you know, everybody wants to do it. So I don't know how we can, but they're there. It's a little bit of humbleness that, you know, that it took me 50 years to learn that humbleness, but, you know, hopefully you'll learn it sooner. But, you know, so it's, everyone's there to help.
Well, and I would throw in that it is a little by little, you know, so in the beginning we were checking on his grades, but now we don't. And that was, you know, when he came back to school after the pandemic and went back on campus, he was like, I've got this. And so I was like, okay. I've been doing this a long time. I'm okay with you having it. Go for it. And there, yeah, a long time. And I was like, let's see. He did very well, except one class, and we were trusting in him. And that one didn't go so well because he didn't really have it, and he didn't really ask for help till it was too late. But I give him kudos. He took the class over the winter term and did get an A. He wanted to prove he could do it. And that's the kind of thing I mean, like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's just his path. And failing can be a great growing experience too, and it was good for us too to realize, like, maybe our little bird wasn't ready to just completely fly, but that was good. He wanted to try on his own, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'd much rather see him wanting to be independent than not. So, but he definitely learned, like he was home the other weekend and he is taking a class that we were like, they're tutors. And this week I said, hey, did you ever go to that tutor? And he's like, I did. And he was like, it was great. I was like, yes, those tutors have been there the past 2 years. So now I think he'll take advantage of that. So he's really grown. But for us as parents, I think it's been important to know that, everyone at their own time, not everyone, starts off as a superstar or whatever, so independently. They're all superstars, but it comes at different times, and to really let them go at their own pace, but provide the supports and just constant reminders, like, you're not in this alone. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to, need it. So I actually, if this is my moment, I'm going to tell you what I did. I asked him yesterday, we were riding home in the car, and I texted him and I said, hey, I have this podcast. What would you say? It's on academic supports. Old student would have been like, I don't know, they have academic support. My new and improved student said, within a minute, this text came back. Number 1, use the Academic Success Center. Number 2, take an intro to an honors university class. It really gives you the skills you need. Number 3, have an organized daily schedule. Number 4, study in a quiet environment with limited distractions. And I was like, wonderful. I feel like we've really turned a corner.
The mic drop moment right there, love.
I know. He could do commercials for us.
I wasn't expecting that. And so I actually jotted it down for this. So
that's a huge celebration. That's fantastic.
It really was. So, some parents, everything I'm saying may be common sense or to their students, but not to all students. It just, some kids take a little longer to realize, I can't just turn in that paper at the last minute. I can't, go from my memory of what was in class. I need to really put in some time. So, Randy, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think adding on to that a little bit is the fact that he wanted to do it all in 4 years. Now, we've come to grips that it may take a little longer to not overload yourself, that life is too short. So, that took a while, right? And to plan out that you're not going to finish in that time frame and piece. So, and it sounds like from what you just said that he's really gotten on track more so, but it's a constant reminder, just like anything, there'll be pitfalls. So, you fall off, you fall back on, but because they are young adults that are still growing. But outside of that, Sally, you covered it very well. And so he's advocating for himself a bit more. And, it'll be a constant reminder and a constant check, but so it's been great. That's a good way to close that out.
That's awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. I think what's so interesting too is that Chuck and Angie, your story is a little bit different. Your approach is a little different, and I think it's going to be fascinating to hear. So tell us a little bit more about your experiences. I know one of the things I say all the time is I'm going to be so sad when Gabby leaves us, because she's like one of my favorites. And her journey has been incredible. But you all have been, such a supporting factor to her, and your style and approach, I think, is just wonderful. Can you share a little bit more about your experiences working with Gabby through academic?
You know, as far as maturity, when I grow up, I want to be Miss Fritzy Charmaine Merriweather. So I think we're not all grown up yet, but we could not be more grateful for your leadership, for all that you've done to support the community at UMBC, really, honestly, and also Dr. Rabowski. I think having read and loved his books, Holding Fast to Dreams, and his new one, Empowered University. I think if you're a parent of a student at UMBC, those are two great resources. And I'm going to show you a little bit of my bias as an educator here. I'm a teacher. I'm going to encourage you to keep reading and looking at the research, but as a leader, Dr. Rabowski has kind of empowered our world in terms of celebrating the diversity in the Meyerhoff Scholarship Program and the rigor and empathy in terms of that conversation with our community. And I think coming back to when Gabby just started at the school, our student, the message was super clear to us is less is more. Now they're in college, and this is where you can kind of just let them, and Sally and Randy, you had mentioned, let them fly. But we realized that no longer were we going to be looking in and looking at those grades. And that was something that was different coming from one student of ours has a 504 and one does not. And it was very clearly evident, Ms. McLean and Mr. McLean, you have no voice in this. It is your student. And that was made super clear, whereas we had that experience of a collaborative approach, and that didn't, but that was really good advice in terms of then we were able to see our student initiating with the supports that they needed. And that kind of came naturally from that kind of tough love principle. But I will say what we've kind of seen is some simple advice. If those that are listening in and having these struggles is empowering your student to, you give them the toolbox, you give them the fishing pole, but you've got to let them do the work in a sense. You watch them, but in a sense, making sure that they reach out they get that syllabus and they have an organized system to regulate that syllabus. When are those exams coming up? Who is my professor? Reach out on a personal level to those different TAs and to the professor themselves. Go to those office hours. Create a communication conduit so that that's pretty successful. And when their things don't go well, when they don't get the grades that they wanted, when things seems to start to happen, sooner is better. And I would think that that's been something that's been super, and it seems so easy, right? Well, if you're having difficulty, reach out. And your son eloquently said, reach out to the Academic Support Center. Seems so easy, but that's not the case. I'm sure, Ms. Sharp, you can address the fact that so many students get the flag, hey, I'm having a problem, I've got 5 classes. Do that when 2 weeks in and start the plan. And I think we're seeing, when we also did the same thing, Chuck and I talked to our student in terms of, hey, we're doing this podcast, what are your insights with the friends? And they said, you know, what's really interesting is high school is night and day to college, and everything is regimented and scheduled. You go to college, there's a very different schedule. The rigor is much more difficult, and they themselves had to seek out for further interventions for support emotionally, and for some also learning disabilities that had come along that were undiagnosed. And so then we have the pandemic shooting at us like a hockey goalie with, you don't know where the shots are coming and you're just feeling like you're taking another shot. I think as parents, we can see that giving your student a toolbox is super important, but letting them and insisting on their independence, but celebrating everything and trying, and Randy, you said social, trying to get them to reach out socially and find those conduits so they can themselves find some joy. If you're laughing, you're learning. And that's kind of where we found for our daughter to be so successful in that sense.
I think one big thing is to reach out to your professor, even if you're not having problems in his or her class, especially when you're a freshman. Go to their office hours, let them put a name with a face, because it's not like high school where you've got 25, 30, 35 kids. Some of these freshman classes have north of 100 kids, and the professor isn't going to know your name, really probably won't know your face, won't care if you show up every day or don't show up every day. But if you go to him or her, go to their office hours, just so they know who you are, know that you care about their class. And in the event that there is an issue down the road, you're having trouble, God forbid, an issue comes up where you need an extension or something like that. We've had issues like that during our 4 years at UMBC. And because our daughter had established a relationship with the professor, they were more willing to bend over backwards and give the extra time to take a test or to hand in a paper. And that's going to be the case whether or not if there's an issue or if you're doing poorly in a class. The time to go to a professor is early on, as Angie said, not right before the final. Say, hey, Professor Sharp, I'm really struggling in your class. They're going to be like, I don't know who you are, and I don't care. I'll see you next semester when you take this class again. They're not going to care. And to follow up kind of what Sally and Randy had said, it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these kids coming into the UMBC, it's such a great academic university. They've never gotten a B. They don't know what that is, or God forbid, a C. It's okay. There's so much pressure on these kids, a lot more than when we all went to school. You know, I got a B. Hey, that's fine, no problem. But these kids, you know, a B's, you know, that's a bad letter. But it's okay. You know, these kids are learning for the first time. They're young adults. They've got a lot of time on their hands. Hopefully, they're joining some clubs. They're not spending all the time in the library. They're getting out to meet some people that you know that they've never seen before. You know, they need to join a club, play some intramurals, do something outside of class, do something outside of the library, enjoy the experience.
And I guess I think if we wanted to kind of summarize and prioritize is the less you do, the more you're doing. But on the flip end, the more you see your student doing and the less, you know, that you're having to do is success in a sense. So that means you're not sending those emails. And again, this is a student where you've gotten them where you feel comfortable not being able to. Maybe in a hindsight, there's a conversation where you in confidence speak to someone and saying, these are the concerns I have, the story I'm telling myself. But what your student needs to see, and this is our feeling, is that they're doing it, that the expectation is that that's independence and that you've allowed for them, that you've given them everything. We support you, we celebrate you, but you're doing this, but you're going to cheerlead them. But when you find yourself making the cake and driving the car and doing it all, you are not being successful in any of that, because then it's your students just going to watch you and say, okay, they're going to expect it. Prompt dependent is very, very a part of what we see in this realm. So that's very important to remember, is getting yourself to a point where the expectation is their independence.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that sparked from both, thank you both so much for sharing your experiences and perspective, is that piece of really the onus is on the student, right, to seek out those opportunities and support. And Amanda, I know you and I talk all the time about, you know, those students who are resistant to that, right, who are not reaching out. And we're just like, oh, come on, we you know, here it is, just take it. This can help you so much. Any thoughts or advice that you'd want to share? Because I know I speak to a lot of families in confidence who know that their student is struggling, and they've put those resources in front of them and said, here, talk to so and so. But the student is just reluctant for whatever reason that they may have to reach out to anyone for assistance. What are some thoughts that you would have to share for families if they're struggling with getting the student to take that first step?
Yeah, I think that it's funny because as you were all talking, it kind of hit on all the things that I wanted to hit on today. But for me, it really is that independent step. We have a program here in the Academic Success Center called the Academic Peer Advocates. And so they're students just like your students. And we pride ourselves on saying that we don't just say, hey, you should go to tutoring. It is, hey, let's open up your laptop, go to this website, go to this site, click this button, look at the schedule, actually sign up, look at your schedule and see where it aligns, put it in your calendar. And we don't do it for them, like our APAs, their academic peer advocates, we don't do it for them, but they help guide them to that step. And the reason we do that is because, one, if you're just kind of saying go to tutoring, there's still so many barriers between saying I want to go to tutoring and then actually sitting in a room for tutoring. And so it's kind of helping out with what are each step to get you there. And so, and I'll use the example of tutoring of saying, you know, I've had parents come to me and be like, my student didn't do well last semester. I now have to need to cuddle them again. Like I need to put the control back into my lap and control this for them. And my pushback has always been, yeah, like you could go on their website and probably use their ID and sign up for tutoring for them, like probably, and look at their schedule. But what are they learning from that experience? And so for a student, being able to show them that it's not hard to sign up for tutoring by somebody helping them guide through it, then they're not as scared to do it the next time. And even, you know, Fritzy, as you said, you know, we reach out to all these students and sometimes like students don't come back to us. And if they would, but even the students who do come back to us, they sit in my office and I give them like the best recommendations, and like sometimes they don't do it. And we can't force them, but what I can say is that whenever we really think about, you know, breaking down the barriers of success, The institution there may be a form that is really hard to get through, and you're helping that student get through a form. It could be that it's really scary to walk over to the math and science tutoring center. And so like our APAs will literally walk a student over to be like, it's not scary. And like I do it too. And so I think being able to really say, like I had a student, they were like, I had a parent who was like, how do I get a student to come meet with you? And I was like, well, ask questions like, hey, did you make an appointment with Amanda? And they'll be like, oh, no, not yet. Okay, well, let's sit down and like, let's look at her appointment link and let's figure out a place that works well. And then you do that. And then now you know when the appointment is. So then after the appointment or before the appointment, be like, oh, remember you have that appointment. And then after the appointment, be like, what did you talk about? And so instead of being like, you're going to see Amanda, you need to make sure you follow all the advice. It really, again, puts that back in their plate to be like, they're really independent. They're doing all this on your own. You're just that person on the sidelines being like, how was things? How can I follow up with this? And then how can I really push them to be the best them that you know they can be? But it's really building their confidence for them to feel like they're the best person that they can be. And so a couple of comments that I wanted to make was Chuck and Sally, I think like being able to say like, hey, there's tutoring for this. Hey, there's tutoring, like you can go on the website and be like, there's tutoring for Spanish or there's tutoring for like math. Even just the reminders to be like, hey, like, did you sign up for tutoring for that? Like, I know you're still struggling. Like, how are you feeling in that class? Is a completely different conversation of being like, you need to sign up for tutoring today. It's like a different feel for a student who wants and craves that independence when they go to college. And so, like I applauded in my head of you being like, there's tutoring for this, like, there's help. And then finally being like, okay, I'm ready now to go and get the help. And then they go and get the help and then they continue to strive. And so I wanted to applaud you for that. And then I also wanted to talk about how like celebrating moments. I think like being able to really think about celebrating their moments and celebrating their wins, even like the small wins, like that quiz, that test, like I talk a lot with students about building confidence and how going to tutoring from the very beginning or going to SI Pass from the very beginning. Sometimes we don't feel like we need it. Like students are like, oh, I'm fine, which is fine, which is great. I tell my students, if you feel confident in the class, that's great. But the point is to continue the confidence. And so as soon as we start wavering in confidence, or as soon as we don't do as well on a test, and like you said, like Chuck, sometimes people already make a B and they will cry about it for a week. Well, we're like, I'm just happy you like got a B. But as soon as they start wavering in their confidence, then they start wavering and being able to ask for help because they're embarrassed. And so what I tell students is that if you're that person, then start tutoring from the very beginning and just don't stop going. Like it's free tutoring, go. It's free math and science tutoring center, go. And so then when you're going, you're like, oh, I got this. And then you're, again, consistently feeling really confident in where you're at. And so I talk a lot with students about confidence building and making sure that they feel confident. That's usually my number one priority. The second thing I talk to students about and that you can talk to your student about is your student is unique. They are not like you. They are not like me. And so what works for them? And so we talk about scheduling and routine building. But I always say, like, if, some people are really good at rigidity and like, I need this at this time and this at this time, and this is how they succeed. I'm not that person. I'm in a doc program. I'm doing great in my life. Like I make good grades, like, but I'm not a XYZ person. I'm a routine person. Like I'm going to get one thing done today. It may not be exactly the same thing every Monday or exactly the same thing, but like, that's okay because I'm still getting things done. So how do things work for you? And so I always tell parents, your student may not be like you, but if you can figure out ways that you use their strengths, their advantage, then they're going to be successful because they believe in themselves, they're building the confidence, and they know that you believe in them too. And usually that comes up with just a more well-rounded, happier student that really wants to achieve this for themselves and not for others.
If I could just jump in and add one thing, that was absolutely perfect. But I do want to say we're talking about asking for help and we're mentioning tutoring and that is very important. But in terms of Maslow's hierarchy, we are now with the pandemic, understanding that our students, our parents, our administrators, our leaders are also suffering with their mindfulness and their mental, social, and emotional acuity. And so we need to say asking for help looks like a variety of different things. As a parent, it may mean seeking marriage counseling. It may mean, but for our students, it may mean having a, like Randy and Sally had mentioned, a social network. However, we know we're not the experts. When you see early signs where your child's detaching, or your student is kind of detaching and having these feelings that you worry about, not just rigor of academia, but that kind of mental acuity and that ability for themselves to kind of rebound and celebrate their own moments, maybe perhaps we aren't the best people, and we should be considering, let's all celebrate. We should be talking about anxiety and depression and our friends in the community that are committing suicide because of the rigors of this world. And that is something that we as educators are seeing, that the less we talk about it, the more difficult it is for our students to have to grasp our heads around it. So I'm very happy to know and have worked with this family advisory board to reach out to our students in terms of those feelings, giving them incredible resources and supports. We've spoken about it a variety of times, but as parents, to recognize having your student reach out to someone who is a professional that can work with their feelings is very critical, not just on the academia, time management, and all the other things. We have experts that can take care of your mind, body, and soul. And I know Freeman talks about that as well in his books of Empowered University and the escalations of in our different communities and the disparity of where we are in this world. And I think we can all agree we need to lean into those uncomfortable feelings and letting those have a safe place to be expressed with a professional. And I think that's important. And I celebrate all of you for allowing for those conversations.
100%. And I think, ditto on that for everything that's been shared. Even the part about that sometimes we may get off track, right? And that's okay. And maybe even celebrating that, recognizing that I need a moment. To take care of some things, right? Maybe it's my mental health. Maybe it's, I have other medical issue that I need to tend to so that I could come back and be the best that I can be with be fully healthy and present in my academic experience. And so I think one of the kind of underlying currents that I keep hearing in our conversation today is that it's okay to kind of have a stumble. It's okay to have to change direction. But, as long as we all are working towards the same goal, right, of getting you to your degree, that's all that counts. And so I think that that's a lovely message to wrap us up on, right? To kind of, get us to a place where, we know that our students, will get to their desired destination in a variety of different ways. And so how we all work together and partner with one another to support our students, I think is what will make them successful. And so I'm a firm believer that we all are partners in this. And why I wanted to have this conversation today was to make sure that families saw themselves in this experience as well and can hear some testimonies, right, from family members who kind of been there and have had the opportunity to support their students through some challenging times. And so I want to just say thank you all so much for the conversation today. This is actually a really good segue. We will have another conversation that we are recording that is going to be talking specifically about mental health and well-being and stress management. So thank you for the good segue, Angie. And that is what's going to be next for us. And then also, so that you all know, if there's something that you heard here today, a question that's lingering for you, please reach out to us. We have the Family Advisory Board who's ready, willing, and able to support our parent and family community. But you could shoot us an email at families@umbc.edu. If you have questions or concerns or want to get connected to one of us, I'm happy to make those connections and correlations because this is what hopefully this session is about, is to provide you all the support and resources so that your student could be successful. But I just want to thank my lovely guests today for such an engaging and wonderful conversation. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories. I know that you have helped some family members today and just seeing themselves in your experiences. And thank you all who have watched our episodes today, and feel free to reach out if you need any any additional support from our community. So with that, I'm going to wrap us up if you all don't mind.
One more thing, make sure you sign up for the portal if you're not already signed up.
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully you're already signed up for our Family Connection portal. Tons of great resources there. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just email me at families@umbc.edu and we'll get you connected right away. Any last closing remarks? Yep.
If you feel like your student is struggling academically and kind of don't know where to go or even where to start, the Academic Success Center is like our one-stop shop. And so if you're like, oh, advocates sound cool, or like, oh, she talks about academic peer advocates, if you just reach out to the Academic Success Center at umbc.edu, they will be able to navigate like what is the right resource. Should they go to Amanda? Should they go to somewhere else? Again, like I only work with first year students. What about other students? And so they'll be able to help navigate where exactly the right person. We talk a lot about in the Academic Success Center, like the right support and the right timing. And so being able to get your student to the right support at the right time. And so it may not be me, it may be somebody else. And so just make sure, shameless plug on the Academic Success Center, our one-stop shop. If you, again, feel like your student's struggling, obviously go to Fritzy, but also you can go and email the Academic Success Center and they'll be able to help you out.
Yes, 100%. I go to them all the time. So, that's where I'm going. So if you want to skip me, that's fine. Well, thank you all so much. This has been great.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we'll hopefully see you next time. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.